Welcome to the War Room, where we decide who won this week's Wednesday Night War between AEW Dynamite and NXT. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is my brother, Ralph Valenti. Ralph, let's get this started. We had a 10-man tag, the Inner Circle versus the Best Friends and the Jurassic Express on Dynamite, and on NXT it was Io Shirai, the women's champion, teaming with Tegan Nox against Dakota Kai and Candice LaRae. Personally, I think this was two cases of how to do a tag team match and how not to do a tag team match, because I thought the Io Shirai, Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, Candice LaRae match was very much a solid tag team match, where the 10-man tag was very chaotic in the beginning and really had nowhere to go up until like the midway point when Sammy Guevara disrupted the hug of the Jurassic Express and Best Friends, and that's when it kind of started going back into the right direction. So I think the opening segment went to NXT here.
I agree. I thought the tag team or the tag match on NXT was definitely the better of the matches. Typically, in my opinion, and this is just the style I like or what I dislike in larger tag team matches, it usually gets convoluted, gets all types of chaotic, and that's especially going to be a negative or a flaw in AEW when you consider that a lot of the tag teams, the way they work their matches, they're not going to pay attention to the rules. And that, they're not saying that's necessarily a bad thing at this point, because I think we have all come to accept the fact that that's just how they're going to work their tag team matches. The rule book is just going to go out the window. But I felt like a good majority of this match was chaotic. It didn't necessarily have a point or a purpose in the very beginning of it until the point that you mentioned right around the middle of it. And then obviously at the tail end of this match, we got Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara, furthering their storyline there, or getting back into their storyline and their feud. But I definitely got to give the nod to NXT in this opening match and opening segment here.
Right. Like I totally get the story progression towards the end, especially with the rekindling of the feud between Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy. After we got the tease of Matt Hardy saying he's dropping the broken gimmick, we get this a little bit of a real Matt Hardy. It seemed like it's just him pushing Sammy Guevara off the top rope, using distractions from his entrance music. I did like that in the finish, and I like the storytelling that we saw in the finish of the women's tag team match, where Dakota Kai walked off from Candice LaRae because it's all about her now. She doesn't care about tag teams. She doesn't care about partners. Her focus now is that NXT Women's Championship, and she's willing to take a loss here in efforts to progress the storyline of her and Io Shirai there. So I like that. I thought it was just well executed here. Next up, we have a championship match on TNT. It's Cody versus WARHORSE for the AEW TNT Championship, a big match that a lot of buzz was going through in the wrestling community. Everybody wanted WARHORSE in the open challenge. They finally get it. On NXT, we get Johnny Gargano versus Roderick Strong. Not a lot of build for this match, but in-ring wise, Gargano and Roderick Strong was the better match. I know a lot of people were really excited for WARHORSE. I thought he did a very good job in his match, but I also think his shine was stolen because we got a appearance of Zack Ryder, now known as by his real name, Matt Cardona, in AEW. So all that visual that you wanted to see from WARHORSE and all that recognition, now everybody's talking about Zack Ryder at the end of this segment.
I thought Gargano and Roderick Strong actually had a really good match. I thought it was really competitive. I feel like the Ultimate Warhorse and Cody match kind of fell flat there.
Wait, did you call him the Ultimate Warhorse?
The Ultimate Warhorse. The Ultimate Warrior minus the steroids and minus the muscles. If only this match had some steroid injected into it, so there was some damn competitiveness. I mean, it wasn't a bad match. The match itself was fine, but for what they hyped it up to be, to me, it just kind of fell flat. And there's a reason for that. Many of the people who are watching AEW or if tuned into AEW don't know who WARHORSE is. And if you took the time to go and watch some of his matches, that's great. But not everybody's going to take that time out of their day to go invest in this feud itself. We know that AEW is going to appeal largely to the independent wrestling fan base. That's a given. It always has, sought out that specific fan base.
Right.
So those people would be pleased by this match, I'd imagine, unless they say otherwise. I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll get a sense of that.
I've seen mixed so far on social media, but more positive than negative with WARHORSE.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad match. The match itself was fine, but it was missing that Eddie Kingston moment, that emotion that drew you in at the beginning. So you're like, damn, I want to see this. This is going to be good. It was missing that real promo. And I want to see them start to go more towards having Cody challenge guys that are more established and more well-known in AEW, and maybe not so many back-to-back, at least week after week, independent guy, because I think largely most people would agree that Cody's going to go over a majority of these times, unless somebody truly upsets him. I don't see Cody losing to some just random guy that they're calling up from the independents to go against him.
Agree.
So I thought the match itself was fine. The end, obviously, as you said, we got the big debut from Zack Ryder, who, mind you, talking about, I'm not saying he's on steroids, but my God, he was juiced to the fucking max. He was jacked. Yeah. He looked like he was in real good shape.
It looked like he was getting training tips from Brian Cage or something. His biceps, his arms looked huge.
Well, he certainly took care of himself, and he was always in good shape going back into WWE, but it'll be interesting to see if he can carry over some of that steam that he lost in WWE when he was super over. So I'm excited to see what happens with him. We had the interference from Thing 1 and Thing 2 from the Dark Order.
John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order. So
sure. Turd 1 and Turd 2.
Yeah, they announced that they're going to have a tag team match next week with Rhodes and Cardona and Silver and Reynolds. So maybe that
Turd 1 and Turd 2.
Whatever you want to call them, Ralph. But this could probably be a break from the Open Challenge, obviously. And then next week, we'll see Cardona and Rhodes in the Open Challenge. That's probably where they're going to go with that. That's how I see it going, but maybe I'm wrong. So up next on Dynamite, we have the official contract signing of FTR, and on NXT, Mercedes Martinez squares off with Shotzi Blackheart. And Martinez and Blackheart, it seemed like it was pretty much a one-sided victory for Martinez, a solid win for the Robert Stone brand, and whatever that stupid gimmick is. I mean, it's a good, in the right direction finally for that brand. But let's talk about this contract signing here. I thought this was a great segment, Ralph. FTR, they're like, let's go over the contract one last time. And Arn Anderson comes in as like a representative of FTR, talking about tag team rules, strictly enforcing the 10 count, strictly enforcing tag ropes, especially in their matches. It should be in all tag team matches in AEW, in my opinion, but specifically in their matches. Love that. I love how Hangman Page came in afterwards and offered whiskey while a shot was given to Harwood and Wheeler. Hangman Page took a whole giant glass of whiskey, and that I just thought the whole segment was really good. And teasing, you know what? There could be this 4 horsemen thing that we talked about last week where it could be Hangman and FTR and whoever the fourth person may be. Maybe it ends up being Cody with his connection with Arn Anderson. I just thought it was a great, great segment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting that we've been talking about the lack of rules in the tag team division in AEW for quite some time. Even Chris Jericho pointed this out maybe about 6 months ago. And just the fact that a lot of the tag teams aren't going to necessarily follow the rules there. Now you have one of these throwback, more old school approach type tag teams like FDR, and they can really use this to their advantage. One, if they're a heel, they can do this where they really want to push the rules and ensure that the rules are intact and that the referees are enforcing the rules, and then they can probably cheat and then get some wins out of this. So I thought that the segment itself was really good. Over on what we saw in NXT, I think that was really just a match to put over Martinez. I thought that was a fine match. It's always tough to compare a segment versus a match, but They both did what they were supposed to do. One was meant to elevate one of the stars on NXT. The other one was to help establish FTR as one of the more dominant and well-known tag teams in AEW. And I think that we're going to start to see the formation of some type of 4 horsemen or group or faction there with Hangman Page, FTR, and someone else that remains to be named.
Yeah, I saw in the comment section on that 4 horsemen video that we just did, and someone brought up how Arn Anderson could be like the JJ Dillon as like the manager of the 4 horsemen. I think that would work really well. But you talk about an in-ring match compared to a segment, and that's what we got again here, where we got the AEW Tag Team Championship match, Ralph. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page retain over Stu Grayson and Evil Uno, while on NXT, Keith Lee calls out Karrion Kross. And I know there's some people out there that were calling out Keith Lee saying that he doesn't exactly show a mean side to him. He's way too nice for his size, and we just need to see a reason for him to get angry and show some physicality on Karrion Kross or anybody who his opponent is. And we got that here. We really did. I thought this was the best segment on NXT this week, and it really showed a different side of Keith Lee that we have yet to see. I thought the whole back and forth with Cameron Grimes was good, where this cocky guy thinks he's going to take the NXT title, tries to jump Keith Lee from behind and gets spirit bombed. The back and forth with Karrion Kross on the screen, awesome. This was just a really good segment. Tag team match I thought was good. I thought this was one of the Dark Order's best showings as a tag team between Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. But I think the match itself just did not get to that next level that I thought it could have. But you also get storyline progression again, where we have the Dark Order trying to recruit Hangman Page. Brody Lee saying he's pissed off at Hangman Page for not accepting the offer. Strength in numbers. FTR comes out, and we learn that there's going to be a 12-man tag next week. FTR, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page versus the Dark Order. What'd you think of this segment? What'd you think of Keith Lee's segment?
Well, so you know the old saying, sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how my initial feelings of the 6-man tag are, because I imagine that's going to be as chaotic as the 5-man tag was this week. One thing I just got to point out here, Brody Lee looks like fucking Colonel Sanders in that suit. He needs a new suit. He looks like a fucking goof. And that he looks like Angus. Have you seen the movie Angus where he comes out in the big maroon suit? When he's, Jesus fucking Christ. I can't unsee that. Dude, who's dressing him? Did he buy that himself? He's supposed to be the leader of this mob boss crime. An enterprise,
purple,
whatever they call it.
Purple is the main color of the Dark Order. So I think that's what they're trying to keep the purple theme in the Dark Order.
Somebody get that man a fucking biscuit and a new hat, because he looks like Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders wears white.
It's goofy. But either way, match itself was fine. Dark Order never took them seriously as contenders for the titles. I didn't think they were going to win. I thought the Keith Lee segment was definitely refreshing, especially considering I have been one of those people that felt like he's been a little too nice. But this is kind of why you want to see that more calm approach. So that way, when he does speak up and he does freak out or get to that next level where he's ready to Hulk smash some shit, it's more effective. You know, if he comes out and does that every week, maybe it starts to lose its effectiveness. But I like where they're going with that in Karrion Kross. I caution that a little bit, because I feel like if they rush into that feud, Keith Lee just won both titles. Obviously, the one of them he gave up, but he's still the heavyweight champion of NXT.
Yep.
Karrion Kross is still fairly new, and they're trying to establish him, but they also want to establish the title reign of Keith Lee. If you rush into a feud between those two,
you book yourself into a corner.
Book yourself into a corner, and I smell a cheap finish.
Yep.
And you know that's going to be tough. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. But that being said, really good for Keith Lee. Awesome feud that I think we can look forward to. We saw Anna Jay. I'm a huge fan of her. She's dressed like Catwoman to compliment Colonel Sanders there, so that was great. But both shows really did fine on either side.
Yeah, they did. And, you know, just the strength in numbers for the Dark Order, I think that's going to be a story that they keep telling and telling and telling. They just need that big win, I think. Eventually, they need that big win. Kind of like what the Robert Stone brand got this week with Mercedes Martinez over Shotzi Blackheart. Maybe the Dark Order wins next week, and that helps them elevate the status of the Dark Order. But next up, we have the women's match between Hikaru Shida and Diamante, which it was a quick squash match. Diamante got some offense in, but Shida gets the win nonetheless. Imperium beat Everrise in a squash match, but I think it's the stuff after those matches are what we're going to be talking about here, and that is for NXT, the Undisputed Era, full form, all four guys there, attack Barthel and Aichner afterwards. So could we get in faction warfare between Imperium and Undisputed Era? Undisputed Era trying to get their mojo back. I really like that segment. AEW, we find out that one of the teams in this Deadly Draw Women's Tag Team Tournament is Nyla Rose with Ariane, formerly of Cameron, one of the Funkadactyls, the one that actually thought one of the greatest matches ever was Melina versus Alicia Fox. Wow.
Didn't she get demoted back to NXT and
I
then
don't know.
eventually
I
get
think-
released?
I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, maybe in 4 years she learned to wrestle better. Maybe she watched a few more matches other than Melina versus Alicia Fox. I don't know, but Thunder Rosa's not working right now. Kelly Klein's not working right now. What the hell? This is what you're coming with?
Well, let's wait and see. We don't want to be judgmental. Like you said, she has hopefully been training for 4 years. We know that she had a very underwhelming run in the WWE, and I really do believe she was demoted back to NXT. I think I remember that, but
I honestly don't remember.
In any event, yes, as far as NXT is concerned, the Undisputed Era is certainly trying to get their mojo back. I don't know if you got an opportunity to hear the interaction between Pat McAfee and Triple H, but it certainly seems like that is going to be an intricate part of a storyline for the Undisputed Era going forward. Totally fine with it because ESPN and other sports organizations, our sports channels, I should say, shows, we're actually covering that interaction between Adam Cole and Pat McAfee. So any additional eyes you can get to your product is usually a good thing. So I'm all for that. I want to see the Undisputed Era get back on the horse, get back on the saddle, and start becoming that dominant faction again. And I really do want to see a nice feud against them in Imperium. So interesting to see where that goes. And the match with Hikaru Shida, that was okay. I mean, again, it didn't necessarily get to that next level, I think, that we saw in a lot of the matches from last week on Dynamite.
Yeah, I agree.
That was kind of the theme of the night. I think that we're going to notice.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let's move on to what I think is the biggest segment of the night and could be a moment in wrestling history that we look back to in the years to come if the wrestling industry does in fact change for the better and starts becoming mainstream and ratings go up and everyone's starting to watch as the mainstream thing again. And that is the state of the industry from MJF. Now, NXT had Swerve Scott versus Jake Atlas. It was a good match, but you're not competing with the state of the industry. This thing, and I said this on Twitter before we hit record, I said, every time there's a big promo, every time there's this really good promo, it quickly gets compared to the pipe bomb with CM Punk. I think this one definitely gets warranted to be in the conversation with the pipe bomb. And if it does in fact be that turning point in the wrestling industry, this will be better than the pipe bomb. This promo was absolutely fire. It was 100% the truth. We're worried too much about flips, flops, moments where wrestlers could be nearly dead just for the sake of some mouth-breathing basement dweller going, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so awesome. 5 stars, 10 stars. Dave Meltzer's going to love it. When there's no psychology behind it. You see, AEW is supposed to be for change. And yet they keep signing former WWE talent. And I've said that it's the right move early on, but if they keep signing them and it hurts the growth of the AEW talent that they want to show, like MJF, that's a problem for AEW. This was 100% fire. I'm voting MJF 2020. He's my champion. He better take the title off Moxley. This was just awesome. Absolutely awesome in my opinion. Great promo. Spoke the truth. Don't care if it was a shoot, work, or work, shoot. Perfect promo right there.
The fuck you doing? I'm supposed to be the heel of this show. People
I don't
are supposed
care.
to be pissed at me.
I don't care. I know I'm the baby face, but everyone's got to agree with me on this. MJF spoke the truth on that. If they don't believe that wasn't 100% the truth, I'm willing to debate in the comment section. That's what we're here for.
I'll tell you what's damn true about the whole thing was just the fact that, like you said, this was 100% fire. This was the segment of the night. It might even be the segment of the week. I'm not going to hold my breath for what I'm going to see on SmackDown, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to really see anything that's going to rival this. This was awesome. This is a true heel doing what a true heel is supposed to do. Get you to want to hate him. Too many guys now, whether you're a heel, you're a face, are working to try and please people like Dave Meltzer to get 5 stars, to please the internet fan, whatever you want to call it. And that's fine. I mean, yeah, you're going to get that and you're going to want to root for the bad guy. A lot of people are interested in rooting for the heels. I'm one of those people. I generally gravitate towards the heels, and that's mostly because WWE puts their baby faces in really shitty positions and just doesn't make them appealing.
Right.
Probably also has to do with the fact that I was a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan growing up during the Attitude Era, and it was really cool to like the badass or the bad guy that was still kind of a good guy, a tweener, whatever you want to call it. But interesting enough, Stone Cold Steve Austin actually came up. He took digs at Moxley for more or less acting like Stone Cold Steve Austin, kind of positioning it where Moxley is essentially a knockoff version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. We mentioned, and you mentioned this, the dives and the flips, which, mind you, I talked about this last week. I knew he was going to go there because that is the style that so many people want to work. That's fine. People can like that. It's an alternate style. But when you talk about the true, storytelling and psychological aspect of a professional wrestling match, you don't have to do that shit for it to be a good match. Just because somebody does a 450 splash or dives through whatever, or jumps off the highest building or highest tier or whatever, that doesn't make it a good match. Doesn't mean it also discredits the match, but it just doesn't make it a good match automatically. So for all the tope suicidas, for all the Canadian destroyers, all that stuff, I will take a great psychological approach to a match any day over that type of stuff. And that's just my opinion. You could like whatever you want to like, but MJF definitely went there. He knew exactly what he was doing because traditionally, I think a majority of the AEW fan base is going to like that style that, the likes of the Young Bucks are going to work. Majority of them, of the guys in AEW are going to work that style. MJF's not that guy, but MJF last night really, truly developed into the guy that I think a lot of people know he's going to be. And whether it's 25 years from now, he's wrestling in AEW, he goes to WWE, wherever he ends up, he's going to be the top heel in the industry for a very, very long time, I think, especially given the fact that he can cut promos like this.
Yep. It's main event time, Ralph, and Jon Moxley is in the main event, MJF's target. It's a tag team match, tornado tag team match, which I don't know what the difference is between a tornado tag match and an AEW traditional tag match because they're ideally the same thing. But it's Darby Allin and Jon Moxley going up against Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks, I thought, had a very good promo before this match, talking about taking out Darby Allin. He's the absolute. I thought it was good. Thought it was a good promo. On NXT, we had the triple threat for the spot in the North American Championship ladder match. Dexter Lumis, Timothy Thatcher, and Finn Balor. Wasn't sure exactly where they were going to go with that because really neither one of those three could use a loss right now, but the finish was really good and protected everybody. Thatcher puts Balor in a leg bar, then Lumis puts Thatcher in the silence and knocks out Thatcher for the win. I love Dexter Lumis. Really love him. I think he's one of the top stars in NXT, and he doesn't even need to talk. So love him, and I'm glad that he's getting this North American Championship opportunity. I thought the match itself did not equate to last week's triple threat match. I still thought it was good nonetheless. But that main event was a good main event. That was a really good main event. And of course, people are going to be talking about that finish with Darby Allin's skateboard thumbtack onto Ricky Starks. That looks scary. The selling or shoot selling of Ricky Starks getting thumbtacks scraped through his back. He even quivered his leg. Now, I don't know if that was just out of acting or it hurt that bad that he actually had to quiver his leg, but that was well executed and a very good chaotic tornado tag match that you expect from a match like that.
Yeah, both of these main events were, in my opinion, they were both good, but they were kind of polar opposites. One was just like kind of chaotic and all over the place. And then obviously you had the tax spot, which was, like you pointed out, that looked like it definitely hurt. I think there was certainly some selling on Ricky Stark's part, but I also think that actually did a little bit of damage there. The leg quiver was an added bonus. And I think if you go back and watch it, as I did a couple of times, I think you'd actually see Jake Roberts in the crowd there pointing out at the leg quivering. So definitely think that hurt. I think it was interesting that Darby made it back from a concussion in a week. Given that that's such a big priority that people are trying to focus on. I thought both were good, though. I thought the triple threat was really good. I think that it's interesting to see that Dexter Lumis won. I thought that we would have seen Finn Balor win. I was wrong on that. But no, I thought both of them definitely delivered in different ways. I enjoyed both.
Yeah, I like both too, but I mean, both shows were very interesting. And one was more in-ring, the other one was more storyline progress. So it's just a matter of what you think is better and what show was better. But before we make our pick on which one was better, let's take a look at the ratings. And the ratings show this week that AEW Dynamite did win the 18-49 demo again, but it went down. They were at a 0.30 this week compared to last week's 0.32. And they also saw a hit in the 50-plus demo where they dropped from a 0.31 to a 0.27. Their total viewership also took a hit, where last week it was around 845,000 total viewers. This week it is 773,000 total viewers. Now NXT, on the other hand, they went up slightly in the 18-49 demographic, going from a 0.17 to a 0.18, and they went back up after 3 weeks of dropping in the 50-plus demo, where they go from a 0.33 to a 0.37. This also narrowing the gap in total viewership, which was 250,000 total viewers between AEW Dynamite and NXT last week. This week, it is only 70,000 after NXT pulling in 707,000 total viewers. So like I said before, Ralph, one show I think was better in ring, and that was NXT. The show that I thought was better with storyline progression was AEW Dynamite. I think this comes up to personal preference, which show you think is better. If you're looking for more storyline progression, obviously AEW is better. If you're looking for the in-ring work, I think NXT was better. If I were to look at this overall for 2 hours, which show is better? I think this week overall, NXT was better because they kept you entertained from beginning to end, whereas AEW Dynamite, still a good show, but up until the MJF moment, a lot of stuff was good, but not got you to that next level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I thought NXT was really good as far as the in-ring work. And I feel like with Dynamite, like you pointed out, I felt like the matches were okay. They were fine for the most part, but they really didn't have that next gear, next level type feel that you typically get, especially in comparison to like the match last week with Cody and Eddie Kingston. I think that overall NXT was the better show when taking a look at, you know, the show itself presented as professional wrestling. But I feel like ultimately by the end of the night, AEW did a better job having a lasting impression and leaving the fans wanting more. I say that specifically because of the segment with MJF, right? So when you look at NXT, like I said, really good professional wrestling show, but not necessarily something that is going to leave the fans wanting more, at least. You may be invested in the storylines, you may be invested in the matches, and that's fine, but it didn't have that thing that really got the people talking. So just as comparison, our question for you, can you tell me the opening match the night that Hogan decided he was going to join the NWO? What match opened that pay-per-view?
No idea, just because I've never actually seen the pay-per-view. I'm not going to lie. I never saw that.
But you vividly remember Hulk Hogan joining the NWO, correct?
Right. Yes.
If I were to ask you the same thing, what match opened Monday Night Raw the night you had Milkomania with Kurt Angle? Could you tell me what match opened that night?
No, and I did watch that episode.
Right. My point being this, people remember segments and moments like this, like the pipe bomb, like last week at Eddie Kingston, and that's the type of thing that really draws people in and wanting more. So even though WWE and NXT is doing a fine job presenting a more than worthy show and product, AEW in comparison is leaving the people wanting more because they have that one segment week after week after week that gets people talking. Last week, you had Eddie Kingston showing up, delivering his version of a pipe bomb. Awesome segment, awesome promo, awesome match delivered, the thumbtack spot. You had Ricky Starks. He had his promo, followed up with the spot with the thumbtacks. That was talked about. Ultimately, at the end of the night, like we talked about, MJF was the star of both shows and maybe the star of the week. We don't know. So even though NXT is doing a great job, there's nothing wrong with that product. It's just that. It's just a really good professional wrestling show and not something that people are like clamoring for. Like, oh, I want to see next week. Right now, I want to see what MJF is going to do next week to follow up on this. That's what I want to see. So I think NXT was the better show. AEW left the best impression.
That's actually the best way to put it, because other than the Keith Lee segment, you're 100% right. Like, what am I going to remember from this week after talking about it from NXT, other than the Keith Lee segment. On
Lost
AEW,
like a fart in the wind.
Yep, I guess, but we'll see. But let us know in the comments what show you thought was better, NXT or AEW Dynamite. And don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, SCPB Podcast. And for our weekly reviews of AEW Dynamite and NXT, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. For Rob Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.